You know, when I first started, I would have thought, oh, honey wine, how interesting could that be? But there's so much mythology tied into it. My name is Denice Ingalls. I'm the owner, founder, and mead maker for Sky River Mead. We chose the name Sky River based on where we were at the time, which was out in a little town called Sultan in the foothills of the Cascades. It was the Sky River Valley, so we named ourselves Sky River. Prior to starting Sky River, I actually studied economics, which I still loved. Shortly after graduation, my father-in-law asked me to come run operations for his honey plant. Remembering having read about mead in English lit classes in college, finding myself surrounded by honey, it just seemed like the perfect thing to give a try. And when I coupled that with Seattle's love and interest of new and different or restored beverages, we decided this was a great place to try and bring mead back. Sky River was actually started as a hobby when I had a real paying job. In one of our lovely recessions, my boss said if I was 35, I'd fight it, but I'm 65 and I'm out. That left me, as a single mom, trying to figure out how I was gonna support my family and what my next step was. And at the time, the winery was just big enough that I didn't want to let it go, but it wasn't quite a full job. My sister was in tourism at the time, which was slightly worse than making wine, so she threw in with me. And we combined our skills. She does all things beautiful, aesthetic, forward-facing. She walks past plants and they get greener. My son has come on board. I actually sold my first bottle of wine while I was pregnant with him, and now he's taller than me. When we first started Sky River, we were really trying to grab the natural qualities of the sky, the rivers, our Sky River, and really embrace the naturalness of where we were. When my sister came on board with me, she started doing labels for us. I am not the artistic one, but I do love 1920s travel posters. So that was the only direction I gave my sister. She has created all the labels since then. And she tries to almost always include water moving, sort of that river aspect where you've got the waves boiling up by the boat or the clouds swirling. It's an expression of my sister's talent, our comfort and appreciation of nature and just being in life. We try to keep our honey as local as we can, and here with the Montana and the meadow foam, beautiful examples of American honey. Into this oven, which is just like your oven at home, but a lot bigger. And we can control the temperature, keep it very low, so we can melt the honey without burning it. This bin already has some water in it, and we're gonna blend the honey into it. The one thing that nature does to preserve honey and keep it shelf stable is it super concentrates it. So the bees take all the moisture out of the honey. To make wine, we need to reverse that process. So we have beautiful Northwest water, we'll blend the honey into it, and then it'll go into one of these tanks. Time to turn mead into rose mead.
You don't trust me?
I never trust you. So it's mostly just a matter of making sure you get enough air in so that it'll sink and infuse into the wine properly. Making mead on paper is the simplest of things. It's probably how we discovered alcohol. God bless our ancestors, they figured out how to make alcohol before they figured out how to write, so we don't know for sure. Bees store honey long term by taking all the moisture out of it. So the humming sound when you go near a hive is generally not the battle cry. It's usually all the worker bees fanning their wings to cool off the hive and essentially dehydrate the honey. And that makes it shelf stable, because even if you were to mix some baker's yeast into it, all it would do is get ugly. It wouldn't ferment because there's too much of a good thing in there. But if you water it down, it becomes the perfect medium for yeast to do their thing. So the thinking is that probably some hunter-gatherer found a honey pot that had filled with water or something like that. You couldn't jump online and replace your honey back then, so you had to use it. You didn't want to dump it out. The best guess is somebody drank it so it wouldn't go to waste, had a really interesting night, and the next night the guys at the cave next door were going, dude, what'd you do? We don't know, because they didn't write it down. We can access a lot of flavors that would be difficult to access in the beer world because they've got such stiff competition from the flavors in the beer, or from the wine world where wine is held relatively sacrosanct and you don't want to go beyond the flavors of grapes. I was probably the most frightened when we were making our rose mead. I love roses. I do not like rose air fresheners. They always have that not quite rose smell, that kind of grandma's bathroom smell. I think it's because we go with the actual, not the synthetic. So we use real rose petals. Our most popular meads are our Solace, which is our homage to King Arthur. It is a barrel-aged mead. It actually has about a 16% residual sugar, so it is, I call it a sipper, back porch at sunset kind of wine. Our aim with our Solace was to replicate the sweeter wines that they made back in the day without making them cloying and heavy. I think we struck a really nice balance. That a lot of people knew what mead was, but not quite. They just knew it was something you drank, and when you read Harry Potter, that's all you need to know. It's a very inclusive community. It's a very welcoming community. I have found that the greater alcohol industry is a little bit more challenging. For the entire time that we've made mead, we're in wine country here, and we do frequently get treated like the red-headed stepchild, put at the poor relations table at tastings, things like that. And then there is the good old boys club, which is always a fun one. People associate mead with the Vikings, which is completely legitimate. It's also misleading, because mead actually has a history all the way down to Africa and as far east at least as India. And there is a tendency in our niche to go with the Viking thing, the Viking horns, which Vikings did not wear. But it's this very manly image. And so we do, as the niche has grown. I mean, back when there was 5 of us, it was hard to be an outsider. But it has gotten male-dominated, and I think it's because of that Viking tie. That to correct that thinking, not only is it not just Viking, but it was also women's work. Women were the brewers. They made the ales. It was part of housework. There are so many traditions, the recipes that you can uncover from different parts of the world, or that you can just surmise based on what you know grew there. You find all these other fun little stories. For example, the Picts, who are no more. They were rather little people. They lived in earthen dwellings in what we now call Ireland. Sounds a lot like a leprechaun. They were unbeatable in battle. Even the Vikings wouldn't mess with them. They were eventually exterminated because they wouldn't surrender. They would just fight till the death. We find out now that they were actually drinking mead before battles, and they were drinking mead that had their local heather steeped in it, which has a hallucinogenic quality, or bacteria that grows under the leaves. So when these people were in battle and the Vikings were writing about how crazy they were and they could not be killed, you had to kill them, you could not beat them, it was because they were actually out of their minds. I never would have seen myself going into this business.